My cruel stepmother had been secretly embezzling millions from my father's $300 million business empire, and when I uncovered her treachery, I knew she would stop at nothing to silence me. Confronting her was a mistake, her calm facade shattered, and she lunged at me in a fit of rage. "You think you've won?" she snarled, her voice dripping with malice. Before I could react, she shoved me into the basement's walk-in freezer and locked the heavy door. The freezing air stung my skin as panic set in, but I refused to give up. I clawed my way to freedom, cold and bruised, but alive. This wasn't over. I would make her pay for what she had done. The very next morning, when she woke up, she was met with a shocking surprise, one that would destroy her plans and expose the monster she truly was. My name is Lily Carter, and I'm 22 years old. For as long as I can remember, my father, Daniel Carter, has been my hero. He's not just any man. He's the founder of a $300 million business empire that he built from scratch through hard work and perseverance. Growing up in our luxurious Chicago home, I often watched him work tirelessly, pouring his heart and soul into the company he loved. Our family wasn't always wealthy. My father's success came through years of sacrifices and unwavering determination. He often told me, "Lily, nothing worth having comes easy." That mantra shaped how I saw the world, and my dreams of following in his footsteps. But despite all his professional success, life at home wasn't always easy. My mother, Grace Carter, passed away when I was just 10 years old. Her death left a void in our lives that nothing could fill. My father and I clung to each other for support, and our bond grew stronger with every challenge we faced. For years, it was just the two of us, a team. We weathered the storms of life together, celebrating victories and overcoming setbacks. I believed our bond was unbreakable. That is, until she entered our lives. 2 years ago, my father met Sophia at a charity gala. She was everything society admired, elegant, sophisticated, and charming. She swept my father off his feet in no time. At first, I was happy for him. After everything he'd been through, he deserved to find someone who made him smile again. Sophia seemed perfect. She always wore a warm smile, brought lavish gifts, and showed a genuine interest in our family, or so I thought. Looking back, there were small things that didn't sit right with me. Her overly polished demeanor felt rehearsed, and her compliments sounded just a little too calculated. But I brushed those feelings aside. After all, who was I to question my father's happiness? A year after they met, Sophia and my father got married in a grand ceremony. She moved into our home, seamlessly blending into our family, or so it seemed. For a while, everything felt normal. Sophia made an effort to bond with me, and I tried to reciprocate for my father's sake. But slowly, little things began to change. Sophia started showing an unusual interest in my father's company. She often attended meetings with him and spoke about helping him with the workload. She was charming with his business associates, easily winning their approval. While my father seemed thrilled to have her by his side, I couldn't shake the feeling that her intentions weren't entirely pure. At first, I dismissed my doubts as jealousy. Maybe I wasn't ready to share my father with someone else. But as the months passed, Sophia's influence grew stronger. My father began including her in major decisions, something he'd never done with anyone before, not even me. It wasn't just business. At home, Sophia's subtle comments about me started to take their toll. She would say things like, "Lily has such a carefree attitude. She's lucky to have such a hardworking father to rely on." At first, I shrugged it off, but over time, these comments planted seeds of doubt in my father's mind. Our once unshakable bond began to falter. Sophia wasn't just a stepmother trying to fit into her new role. She was a master manipulator, and I was slowly starting to see through her facade. In the months following Sophia's arrival, I felt like an outsider in my own home. It wasn't obvious at first. Sophia was clever. She always played the role of the perfect stepmother, offering kind words and subtle compliments when my father was around. But when it was just the two of us, her tone would shift, her smiles replaced with cold stares. "Your father deserves better than to carry the whole company on his back," she said one evening as we sat for dinner. Her words sounded innocent, but I could hear the judgment in her voice. "He's lucky I'm here to help him keep things running smoothly." I clenched my fork, resisting the urge to respond. I'd learned that arguing with Sophia was a losing battle. She always found a way to twist the narrative, making herself look like the supportive wife and me like the rebellious daughter. Sophia wasn't just influencing my father's personal life. She was embedding herself deeply into his business. She began attending board meetings, claiming she was there to lighten the load. My father welcomed her involvement with open arms, proud to have a wife who cared about his work. "She's a natural, Lily," he said one evening as we sat in the living room. "Sophia has some incredible ideas for expanding the business. You should take notes." Take notes? I wanted to scream. I had spent years preparing myself to step into the business one day, learning everything I could about my father's company. And now, here was Sophia, a newcomer, effortlessly sliding into a role I had worked so hard to prepare for. The first red flag appeared when I overheard Sophia on the phone one afternoon. I was walking past the study when her voice stopped me in my tracks. "Yes, the transfer is set for next week," she said, her tone sharp and businesslike. "We just need to finalize the offshore account details." I froze, my heart racing. A transfer? Offshore accounts? The words sounded suspicious, but without context, I couldn't be sure what they meant. I leaned closer to the door, straining to hear more, but Sophia must have sensed something. The conversation ended abruptly, and I quickly darted away before she could see me. That night, I tried to shake off the unease. Maybe it was just a business matter. After all, Sophia was involved in the company now, wasn't she? But something about the way she spoke, the urgency in her voice, made my stomach churn. The second red flag came when I accidentally stumbled upon some financial records in Sophia's office. I was searching for a book she had borrowed when I noticed a folder sticking out from her desk drawer. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. What I saw made my blood run cold. The records detailed a series of large transfers, amounts ranging from $200,000 to $1 million, all funneled into accounts I didn't recognize. The names on the accounts were foreign, and the transactions didn't align with any legitimate company expenses. I snapped photos of the documents with my phone, my hands trembling. This wasn't just suspicious, it was criminal. Sophia was clever, though. She must have sensed my growing suspicion because her subtle comments about me became sharper, more frequent. "I'm just worried about Lily," she told my father one evening as I walked into the room. "She seems so distracted lately. Maybe she's not ready for the responsibility of the business." My father frowned, looking at me with concern. "Lily, is there something going on?" I opened my mouth to defend myself, but stopped. If I told him about what I'd found, would he believe me? Sophia had already done a masterful job of planting doubts about my capabilities. Without solid proof, I risked further alienating him. "No, Dad," I said finally, forcing a smile. "Everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. Sophia was up to something, and I was determined to find out what it was. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention to Sophia's every move. I copied files from her laptop onto a flash drive whenever she left it unattended. I searched her office when she wasn't home, looking for more clues. The picture that began to emerge was worse than I could have imagined. Sophia wasn't just meddling in the business. She was actively siphoning money out of the company. The $5 million embezzlement wasn't just a one-time scheme. Emails I uncovered revealed that she and an unnamed accomplice were planning to drain even more funds, leaving my father's company on the brink of collapse. Sophia must have sensed that I was watching her because her behavior toward me grew more hostile. One evening, as I walked into the kitchen, she cornered me, her expression as cold as ice. "You've been awfully quiet lately, Lily," she said, her voice laced with suspicion. "Anything on your mind?" "No," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Just busy with school?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. You wouldn't want to waste your energy on things that don't concern you." Her words sent a shiver down my spine.
She was warning me.
But I wasn't about to back down, Not when my father's entire legacy was at stake. I couldn't ignore the evidence any longer. Sophia wasn't just meddling in my father's company, she was robbing him blind. The stolen $5 million was only the beginning. Her emails hinted at a much larger scheme, one that could cripple the business my father had spent decades building. One afternoon, while Sophia was out meeting with a business associate, I decided to search her office more thoroughly. I didn't just want hints or suggestions, I needed undeniable proof. I found it in a folder buried deep in her desk drawer. It contained detailed plans for transferring another $8 million into an offshore account within the next 2 weeks. Each document was meticulously prepared, with forged signatures of my father approving the transfers. Among the papers was an email thread with a name that sent chills down my spine. Mark Harlow, a known white-collar criminal who specialized in financial fraud. He was Sophia's accomplice. The email detailed their plans to drain the accounts entirely before fleeing the country. I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just business, it was personal. Sophia had wormed her way into my father's life, stolen his trust, and was now trying to destroy everything he had worked for. That evening, I decided to confront my father. I had all the evidence I needed, and I couldn't wait any longer. "Dad," I said, sitting down beside him in the living room, my heart pounding. "There's something you need to see." He looked at me with concern, setting his newspaper aside. "What is it, Lily?" I handed him the folder of documents, watching as his expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "Sophia has been stealing from the company," I said. "These are the proof, emails, bank transfers, everything." He frowned, flipping through the papers. But as I watched, his confusion gave way to anger. Not at Sophia, but at me. "Lily, this is ridiculous," he said, slamming the folder shut. "Sophia has been nothing but supportive. She would never do something like this." "Dad, please," I begged. "I know it's hard to believe, but look at the evidence. She's working with Mark Harlow, for God's sake." But he shook his head, standing up and pacing the room. "You're misunderstanding the situation. Sophia has done more for this family than you realize. I won't let you sabotage our relationship with these baseless accusations." His words cut deeper than I expected. Sophia had him completely under her spell. No matter what I said, he wouldn't believe me. That night, as I lay in bed, the weight of my father's rejection pressed down on me. But I wasn't about to give up. I still had the documents, and I was determined to find another way to expose Sophia. The next morning, I woke up early, planning to make copies of the evidence and take it to someone my father trusted, maybe one of his business partners or our family lawyer. But before I could leave the house, Sophia confronted me. She stormed into my room, her face a mask of fury. "You've been snooping around, haven't you?" she demanded, slamming the door behind her. I stood up, my pulse quickening. "I know what you've been doing, Sophia. I have the proof, and I'm taking it to Dad." Her lips curled into a sneer. "You think you're so clever, don't you? But you have no idea what you're up against." Before I could respond, she lunged at me, grabbing the folder from my desk. I tried to wrestle it back, but she was stronger than she looked. "You're not going to ruin this for me," she hissed, backing me toward the door. "Do you have any idea how long I've worked for this? Your father will never believe you over me." The struggle led us downstairs to the basement, where Sophia finally overpowered me. She shoved me backward, and I stumbled into the walk-in freezer my father used to store wine and other perishables. Before I could regain my balance, she slammed the heavy door shut, locking me inside. "You want to play hero, Lily?" she called through the door, her voice dripping with malice. "Let's see how long you last in there." The freezing air bit at my skin as panic set in. I pounded on the door, screaming for help, but the thick walls muffled my cries. My breath came out in white puffs as the temperature dropped, and I knew I had to act fast. The freezer was small, with shelves lining the walls. Desperate, I scanned my surroundings, looking for anything I could use to escape. My eyes landed on a ventilation panel near the ceiling. Using a metal tray from one of the shelves, I pried the panel loose and hoisted myself up. My fingers were numb from the cold, and every movement sent pain shooting through my body, but I refused to give up. Crawling through the narrow duct, I felt the icy metal against my skin, but the adrenaline kept me moving. After what felt like an eternity, I emerged in the storage room next to the basement. Shivering and battered, I grabbed my phone and fled the house. I couldn't go to my father. He wouldn't believe me. Instead, I went straight to the family lawyer, Mr. Grant. "Lily, what happened to you?" he asked, alarmed by my disheveled appearance. I handed him the folder, my hands still trembling. "It's Sophia," I said. "She's stealing from my father, and she just tried to kill me." Mr. Grant's face darkened as he flipped through the documents. "This is serious," he said. "We need to act quickly." My entire body trembled as I sat in Mr. Grant's office, wrapped in a blanket and sipping hot tea to ward off the chill. I still couldn't believe what had just happened. Sophia had tried to kill me. The same woman who had charmed her way into my father's life and pretended to care about our family had locked me in a freezer, hoping I'd never escape. But I had survived, and now it was time to fight back. Mr. Grant examined the folder I had brought, his expression growing graver with every page. "This is substantial, Lily," he said, finally looking up. "But it's not just about the money anymore. Sophia's actions have crossed a line. This is attempted murder." "I know," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "But my father still won't believe me. Sophia's manipulated him so completely that he's blind to the truth." Mr. Grant nodded thoughtfully. "Then we'll need to ensure that when we confront her, the evidence is overwhelming and public. She won't be able to deny it, and your father won't have a choice but to see her for who she really is." Together, we planned our next move. I handed over the flash drive containing the emails, financial records, and other documents I had copied from Sophia's laptop. Mr. Grant contacted the police, informing them of the embezzlement and the attempted murder. "They'll be ready," he assured me. "But we need the perfect moment to expose her." I returned home later that evening, careful to mask any signs of what had happened. Sophia greeted me in the hallway with a saccharine smile that sent chills down my spine. "Feeling better, Lily?" she asked sweetly. "You looked so pale this morning. I was worried." I forced a smile. "Much better. Thank you." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if searching for cracks in my facade. She didn't know I had escaped the freezer and taken the evidence to Mr. Grant, but I could tell she suspected something was amiss. Over the next few days, I stayed out of her way, acting as though nothing had changed. It wasn't easy. Every time I saw her, my heart raced with anger and fear.
But I knew I needed to bide my time.
The opportunity came sooner than expected. My father announced that the company's annual charity gala was just days away. It was a lavish event, attended by business associates, journalists, and influential figures from across the city. Mr. Grant and I agreed that this would be the perfect moment to expose Sophia. The audience would be large enough to ensure the truth couldn't be hidden, and the media presence would make it impossible for her to escape the fallout. In the days leading up to the gala, I worked tirelessly to prepare. I created a presentation with all the evidence, emails, bank transfers, and recordings of Sophia's conversations with her accomplice. I rehearsed my speech, determined to remain calm and composed when the moment came. Meanwhile, Mr. Grant coordinated with the police, ensuring they would be on standby to make an arrest as soon as Sophia was exposed. The night of the gala, I dressed in my finest gown, determined to project confidence despite the turmoil inside me. The grand ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and laughter, but my focus was on Sophia, who flitted among the guests like a queen. She didn't even glance my way. She was too busy basking in the admiration of my father's business associates, completely unaware that her carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. As the evening progressed, I waited for the perfect moment. When most of the guests had arrived, I walked up to the stage, my heart pounding. Taking the microphone, I glanced around the room, meeting my father's confused gaze and Sophia's now-frozen smile. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. "I apologize for interrupting, but there's something I need to share, something that affects all of us here tonight." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sophia's smile faltered, and I saw her eyes dart toward the exits. This isn't easy for me, I continued, but it's necessary. My stepmother, Sophia Carter, has been stealing from my father's company. She's embezzled $5 million so far, with plans to take even more. Gasps filled the room as I gestured to the technician to begin the presentation. The screen behind me lit up with evidence, emails, bank records, and financial statements showing Sophia's theft. The final slide was a recording of her voice during a phone call with her accomplice. We'll transfer the rest next week. By the time Daniel realizes what's happened, we'll be long gone. As the recording played, Sophia sprang to her feet, her face twisted with fury. This is nonsense, she screamed. She's lying. Daniel, you can't believe this. But before she could reach me, 2 uniformed police officers stepped forward. Sophia Carter, one said firmly, you're under arrest for embezzlement and attempted murder. She turned to my father, desperation in her eyes. Daniel, please. You know I would never do this. But my father's expression was one of betrayal and devastation. How could you? He whispered, his voice trembling. As the officers led Sophia away, the room buzzed with shock and disbelief. I stood there, exhausted but triumphant. The truth was out, and Sophia's reign of manipulation was over. In the days that followed, Sophia's accomplice was also arrested, and the stolen funds were recovered. My father apologized to me over and over, devastated by his failure to see through Sophia's lies. I'm so sorry, Lily, he said one evening as we sat together. I should have trusted you. It's okay, Dad, I said, though the hurt lingered. We'll rebuild together. And we did. The morning after the gala, the house felt quieter than ever. The air, once thick with tension and deceit, now seemed lighter, though the scars of betrayal lingered. I sat in the living room with my father, both of us still processing the events of the previous night. Sophia's arrest made headlines across Chicago. News outlets covered the story of how she and her accomplice, Mark Harlow, had planned to embezzle millions from my father's company. The evidence I had presented at the gala left no room for doubt. Within days, Sophia's accomplice was apprehended, and both were charged with embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted murder. The legal proceedings were swift. The stolen funds were traced and recovered, preventing any long-term damage to the business. Sophia was sentenced to 15 years in prison, with an additional 5 years for her role in locking me in the freezer. Her accomplice faced a similar fate. Justice was served, but the damage Sophia had done to our family wasn't so easily repaired. My father had always been a pillar of strength in my life, but after Sophia's betrayal, he seemed shaken. He spent hours in his study, poring over business reports and reviewing every decision Sophia had influenced. One evening, he called me into his office. He looked older, wearier, as though the events of the past few weeks had aged him overnight. Lily, he began, his voice heavy with emotion, I don't know how I let this happen. I should have seen through her lies. I should have believed you. His regret was evident, but so was his determination to make things right. It's not your fault, Dad, I said gently. Sophia was a master manipulator. She fooled everyone. The important thing is that we stopped her. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't ready to forgive himself just yet. With Sophia gone, my father asked me to take a more active role in the company. It was a challenge I had been preparing for my entire life, but stepping into the spotlight felt daunting. You're ready, Lily, my father said one morning as we sat together over breakfast. You've proven your strength and determination. The company needs someone who understands its values, and that someone is you. His faith in me was the encouragement I needed. Over the next few weeks, I immersed myself in the business, meeting with executives, reviewing financial plans, and ensuring Sophia's schemes hadn't left any lingering threats. Beyond the company, my father and I worked to rebuild our relationship. The trust we had lost during Sophia's manipulation didn't return overnight, but with time and effort, we began to heal. One evening, as we sat on the porch overlooking the city skyline, my father turned to me with a small smile. You know, your mother would be so proud of you, he said softly. Tears welled up in my eyes. I hope so. I've been trying to honor her memory in everything I do. "You're not just honoring her," he said. "You're building something even stronger, something she'd be proud to be a part of." Sophia's betrayal had shaken me to my core, but it also taught me the importance of resilience and the power of truth. I vowed to never let anyone exploit my family again. Under my leadership, the company began to thrive once more. We implemented stricter oversight and transparency measures to ensure no one could take advantage of us again. But it wasn't just about the business. I had learned the value of family, trust, and standing up for what was right. Those lessons would stay with me for the rest of my life. Occasionally, I would hear updates about Sophia from the legal proceedings. She had tried to appeal her sentence, but her efforts were futile. She was left to face the consequences of her greed and betrayal alone. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I did feel a sense of closure. She had made her choices, and now she was paying the price. As the months turned into years, my father and I found a new rhythm in our lives. The shadows of Sophia's deceit faded, replaced by a sense of hope and determination. We weren't just rebuilding a company, we were rebuilding our family, our trust, and our future. And as I stood in the boardroom one day, leading a meeting with confidence and clarity, I realized something. Sophia's betrayal hadn't broken us. It had made us stronger. This wasn't just the end of a dark chapter, it was the beginning of a brighter one. Justice had been served, and my family was whole again. The scars Sophia left behind would never fully disappear, but they became a reminder of the strength and resilience that defined us. As I looked toward the future, I knew one thing for certain. No matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more thrilling tales like this, don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if you were in Lily's shoes? I'd love to hear your opinions. And hey, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories filled with drama, suspense, and justice. Hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support keeps us inspired to bring you more amazing content. See you in the next story.